Can anyone hear me on here? We got one, only one.
No.
I can hear you now.
Oh.
Got it.
Sorry, I'm a ditzo. Now I hear myself and I see you and I hear you.
All right. There's 6 people here.
Oh, there will be more.
Okay.
Sure.
I just see if we need to wait or not. I'm sharing a screen, so you got that figured out. Do you see the actual PowerPoint, or do you see like the PowerPoint like it's presentation mode?
Not in presentation mode. We see the PowerPoint and PowerPoint, all the instructions and all that. There we go. Yeah, that's
okay.
right. That's screen mode. And gosh, I hope more people join tonight. Do I need to be the host to let them in? Since it's
I saw one iPhone and I pressed admit.
Oh, you did? Okay.
So I don't know if that will.
So
let's see what happens. Yeah, there. Christopher wants in.
Okay.
I'll let him in.
Here we go. Oh. Hi, Christopher.
Hello. That's better now that I've unmuted. No Zoom session starts without saying hello and then going, oh yeah, I have to unmute.
That's right. I don't know what time it is. Let's wait a few more minutes if you don't mind, Mallory. I don't even know what time it is actually.
It's not even 6. We got a minute.
5:59, yeah.
Excuse me.
All right, Sue's coming in. Are you letting people in, Mallory?
I did. I clicked a few of them because it just pops up on my screen.
Okay.
I don't know.
Good. I don't have that control now. You are under control of everything.
Ooh, sounds important, doesn't it?
I knew it would scare you. You are a game warden after all. You are a game warden after all. So
don't give me too much power. I went to a concert the other day and I was talking to a kid and just shooting the breeze with him. And we talked about law enforcement and asked him about game wardens. He goes, I think they have too much power. That's before he knew I was a game warden. It was the funniest thing. And I finally told him, I was like, I'm a game warden, by the way. He goes, oh, well, I still feel that way. I'm like, yeah, I agree. We have a lot of authority, but with a lot of authority comes, a lot of responsibility.
That's right. That's right.
Cheryl wants in.
Okay.
I'm glad I got to do one of these Zoom meetings before now.
I've only done one. So, yeah.
But for meeting wise, I've only done one meeting, but I've done interviews. We had to do cadet interviews with this.
Oh, okay. And so you do other presentations about birds? Did I hear you say?
I've done one 3 or 4 years ago about ornithology is what I had done.
Oh, wow.
I did my undergrad and graduate degree in bird stuff, biology.
Well, we might ask you to do one for
us.
Do you mind?
Not at all.
Okay.
It's been a long time since I watch birds on the job and get paid for it. But...
Yeah. I won't make you do it right away.
Okay, give me a little time.
Yeah. Anybody else want in?
I'm seeing.
We can't hear you, Susan. You're muted.
Hello, I'm here, Cheryl.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's better, Sue.
All right, cool.
Christopher, did you make that background or is that really your house?
That is my bedroom wall. No, I'm kidding. That's just something I pinched off the internet.
It's hilarious. I love it.
I do it for business. I do it for personal stuff. It's so funny at work when I'm in a serious meeting and I've got these idiot cats behind me.
I love it.
I
You
love
try
it.
to be professional. How did you do that?
There's a just Google how to change your background in Zoom, and it's real quick. You can put whatever obnoxious thing you want to put back there if you want.
Oh gosh.
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, should we get started?
I'm ready.
Still 3. Should we get started, everyone?
Sure.
I'm ready.
Okay. Go ahead, Mallory, and then some people may ask to come in and just let them in.
Okay, sounds good. So hello, everyone. This is the era we live in that we get to do this, but at least we have the opportunity to do it. I'm a Texas game warden. I've been a game warden for over 9 years now, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, and I'm going to talk to you today about laws, regulations, and ethics, which are all incredibly important for you guys. I don't know if y'all can all answer me. It's weird not to be interactive, but Kipper, maybe you can tell me how many of these people are new people to your group or maybe have never heard this talk.
Okay. Only Lena and I are master naturalists already. The rest of them are trainees.
Excellent. So this is new information. Then I will probably talk a lot longer now.
That's right.
And I'm sorry that you're going to have to hear a repeat.
No, like I brought out my notes and everything so I could add to them tonight. So
Okay.
I'm excited.
So let me make sure y'all can see my PowerPoint and kind of follow along and see the pictures I'm going to be talking about with them. Is that a yes?
Yep.
I can see it. Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Good deal. Okay. So the main things that Texas Master Naturalists in y'all's book, if you've got your book along with you, the main things that they made sure I need to cover today is I need to teach y'all the difference between Texas laws and regulations, who actually owns Texas wildlife, and then also the early history of conservation law, which it's incredible how far back it goes in Texas. Then also talk about permitting processes, and then the relationship between game wardens, you guys, and the general public. We'll identify ethical standards and why they're so important for you guys, and listen closely. And then we'll talk about some situations you may run into and how to best handle them. So as a human being, you're going to run into all these things, whether it's a work setting, anything else, but Texas Master Naturalist, your behavior is dependent on 3 things. There's laws that everyone has to obey, or else there's repercussions of potentially going to jail or a financial hardship. Rules that are established for the Texas Master Naturalist, which the worst thing that can happen there is you get a talking to or you get kicked out of it and you can't be a part of it. And then ethics, which is interesting because in every walk of life, you're going to have ethics. And if you're not taught them, you may not know it. And you sure don't want to learn the hard way that oh, that was really unethical what you did. I mean, there's the obvious ones, not to lie or things like that. But with Texas Master Naturalist, what may not be acceptable among your peers is something we need to talk about. So in short, a land ethic changes the role of a Homo sapien from conqueror to plain member of it. So does anyone know who said that?
Was it Leopold?
It sure was. Exactly, right. So I think it's really important to recognize that as humans, we're not here just to take over. We're learning to live with it and be a part of it. Again, not a conqueror of it. So a land steward. So, I mean, we've got a lot of wildfires going along right now. This right here is prescribed burning. That is a good thing, an absolute good thing. I did my graduate degree on the effects of prescribed burning on the red-cockaded woodpecker, which is a threatened species. In East Texas, they're doing it in the Sam Houston National Forest to help create more habitat that was actually more native back in the time, hundreds of years ago, when you'd have natural wildfires from lightning strikes or Native Americans would accidentally set things on fire, and it would help clean out that understory. Well, once humans started building their houses all in there, it became an issue because they didn't want fires. And obviously in California with what's going on there, you had a really thick understorage that was not normally like that. And so when you burn that, it's a high intensity heat, and that's killing the trees. It's charring everything, versus what they're doing. You can see right here is they're doing a prescribed burn, and they're keeping there's some dead mulch, some dead stuff at the bottom, fuel is what we call it. And they're burning that off, and that's going to help the forest. So I really find prescribed burning interesting. And I think it's excellent land stewardship. The best definition of a land stewardship in the Texas Master Naturalist Statement: beneficial management of natural resources and natural areas. The concept goes back to Plato in 400 BC. If you're following along in your Texas Master Naturalist booklet, there's a little module that you can read more about this. So if you buy a new puppy or a kitten, you have the obligation to nurture it, right? Take care of it, protect it. The same obligation if you buy a piece of land. You need to take care of that piece of land. Make sure that the animals on there are diverse and it's sustainable. Public lands. I don't know how many hunters are here, but I'll definitely be talking about that. 86% of Texans live in urban areas. That is a huge percentage, and that has changed drastically decade to decade. We know that Texas has increased over 10 million from 1980 to 2014. That is a huge jump. Managing land is obviously difficult, especially in Texas. Many landowners are absentee, and that makes my job incredibly difficult up here when I have someone poaching on that land and I have to find the landowner. Only about 5% of Texas is public land. And it's actually, from what I understand, it's down to 3%. So there is not much public land in Texas versus, say, Colorado, California, other states like that. So here's a nice map that kind of shows you Texas. And as you can see, there is not much public land. The blue is the federal land. And then you can see some parks and wildlife land. Probably the biggest chunk up here is, I believe that's, can you see my mouse?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Palo Duro. That is a huge chunk of, I say huge, but it's really not that big.
Wow.
It's really, I mean, Texas is private. So being able to manage these lands and being a steward for it, we have to encourage people to take care of the land. And that's kind of hard if they're not willing to hear it. I know that's hard for the biologist to get that concept across. There's 172 million acres in Texas. Texas is huge.
Wow.
The public hunting land, there's only 600,000 acres. That's not much. 51 wildlife management areas. I think someone's trying to get in. Is anyone seeing that?
Barry, Sienna.
Okay, I just thought there was someone pending trying to get in. Something popped up.
Okay.
Okay. Well, they'll call you and you can let me know if I need to let them in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
All right, big question. Who owns wildlife? Who does it belong to? Who do these ducks belong to? The people of Texas. Exactly. So it's not the king's land. Every animal belongs to the people of Texas. So even if you're not a hunter, and if you like viewing wildlife, or if you don't even like viewing wildlife, maybe your kids will, but it belongs to everyone. So you should be mad when someone takes advantage of a resource and poaches. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a hunter or not. You should be upset when someone takes an animal illegally. The Migratory Bird Treaty, that was back in 1916, and that is an old act that still sticks around today. Our state law actually mirrors it too, and this is probably the #1 law that I see that the ignorance of breaking it. So you can't actually touch anything on a bird, okay? So you can't take, capture, kill, possess, sell, purchase, barter, import, export, transport, any part of the egg, nest, any of that stuff. You can't touch it if it's protected, which is every single bird in Texas and the US except for game birds. And there's very few game birds out there. There's certain ducks you're allowed to hunt. There's quail, there's dove, goose. And what else am I forgetting? Did I already say crane?
No, crane.
Okay.
Turkey.
And turkey. Good, thank you. So there's very few And then those are the game birds. I probably missed one or two, but everything other than that. So people always say, you can't shoot a crow. No, you can't shoot a crow.
Wow.
Now there's certain ones like grackles they're if they're depredating or devastating a plant, then they make the exception. You have to take that in consideration. There are a lot of grackles too. So every other bird, you ever pick up a cardinal feather? Anyone pick up a cardinal feather and say, oh, this is really pretty, and stick it in your book? You're breaking the law. This actually falls under this law. And I'm not going to lie, as a kid, I picked up every feather I found. So it was hawk feather. I mean, all of those things. And part of the reason this had started is if you look at that picture, she's wearing that big old hat. For a long time, it was a huge deal to get the biggest, beautiful feathers and all sorts of different feathers. So what do? If you're a businessman, you go out and start shooting a lot of birds and selling feathers because it didn't matter. There wasn't restrictions on it. So this came out, and it was absolutely great that it came out at that time, and it made a difference.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, there's the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. What if you're helping a bird? It's okay to transport them then, right?
Great question. Great question. So I was trying to see, it looks like I lost a slide in here somewhere, but, oh, there it is. So if you find an injured bird, the first thing you're going to do is call the game warden in that area. The second thing, if you can't get a hold of the game warden, call the rehab. And thank goodness we have Gail Barnes. Has she came and talked to y'all yet?
Not this year, but we know.
Okay. What a great resource. She is a Texas master naturalist, actually.
Yes, she is.
So
Yes, she is.
she's still, okay. So she'll come talk to you guys. Now, truth be told, to answer your question, yes, you're breaking the law if you pick up that injured animal and take it to the rehab without contacting someone, okay?
Oh, okay.
I consider good faith in that you didn't take that squirrel home, you didn't take that cardinal home, or whatever injured animal you found. You didn't take it home and wanted to keep it for a week and nurse it back to health. You had good intentions to get it somewhere. And I absolutely understand that. Every game warden's going to understand that too. There's a difference between you transporting it 72 hours later versus the first 24 hours. Okay. If Gail has to call me and say, hey, they called me and had questions about how to take care of this, and then I have to deal with you, there's going to be repercussions. I take a lot of effort in making sure you're trying to do the right thing.
Right. That's great.
Does that answer your question, or
Yes,
are there any other questions that came off of that y'all would like to ask while it's fresh on your mind? Then we'll move forward. So the difference between ethics and laws. So like we said before, law it's written down, obviously, and there's repercussions if you don't follow it. What are ethics? Are they written anywhere?
Sometimes. Yeah,
it depends on where. So if you take hunter education is a requirement for any hunter born after 1971. They have to take a class, and it's an excellent class. Teaches you things like shooting a bird out of the tree or out of the water. That's not considered a fair principle or a fair deal. So it's not ethical to shoot a bird out of the water or the tree. To make it fair, the bird has to be flying, but it's not a law. So that's something that you'll learn in hunter education. And I think it's a great thing that maybe none of y'all are hunters, maybe half y'all are hunters, that maybe you never heard that before and go, oh, didn't realize that. I didn't realize I grew up in a poaching family. Found out pretty soon. So you learn a lot. All right. So laws are interpreted by the courts. Who is interpreting ethics? By each individual. Legislatures are the ones that establish the laws. Who establishes it? Who does ethics? Where do they come from? They can be philosophers, religious, professional groups. Laws are applicable to everyone. Ethics, it's a personal choice. The priority of decided by the court, priority determined by the individual. If you want to follow it or not, it's totally up to you. If you want to be ethical, it's absolutely up to you. The final decision for the courts is with law. In ethics, there's nothing. It's enforceable by law. Nobody, well, I shouldn't say nobody. There isn't typically enforcement with ethics. Now you might lose some friends along the way, along with, being kicked out of something. So there's two bodies that make up the laws. They make up the regulations. Regulations are published in the Texas Administrative Code. You can look that up. Regulations may be enacted by other bodies, such as river authorities or something like that. In Parks and Wildlife, we have a commission, and they're appointed by our governor. And what they do is obviously laws as well as regulations, and then they do proclamations. For example, every year, let's say redfish, or they notice the biologist that there's a decrease in something, or an oyster bay, it becomes contaminated. They put out a proclamation, and that says this bay is closed, and that allows us to still enforce it. It may not take 2 years to get written into law, because in 2 years, that body of water may be fine. That's why they're allowed to create proclamations. Has anyone ever heard proclamations or seen emails that say, okay, red snapper's closed down, or this bay is closed down, or hey, guess what? We are shooting there's just so many mallards being harvested that we have to lower the limit for mallards because it was a drastic thing. Maybe a hurricane came through. So we can't just send it to the lawmakers in 2 years, hope we change the limit. That's what allows our commission to enact these proclamations, and these proclamations allow us to enforce it and say, okay, this was just enacted, here you go. Any questions about that? And do y'all kind of understand the importance, at least for something like Parks and Wildlife, why it's incredibly important that our commission has that authority to be able to close things down, or maybe increase or decrease, just depending on what that resource or that animal is doing at that time? I get a lot of questions saying, well, I thought it was a law that you couldn't do this or that, and why don't you enforce it? And for me, if it's a city ordinance, that's not really I am state laws. I do state laws and regulations. So anything that's in the book for state, I can enforce. If it's a city ordinance that you can't be out past a certain time at a certain park, I just say, hey, just so you know, that's city ordinance. If LPD drives by, you're going to be in probably a lot of trouble. Now, the odds are, if I found them, they're probably doing something else in addition to that, too.
Mm-hmm.
So federal laws, a lot of state laws will mirror federal laws. County laws, there's county ordinances as well. Like it's a county ordinance in Lubbock that you have to have 10.3 acres to be able to hunt on. That's my #1 call right now during dove season.
Mm.
Oh, I had put this on here because there's certain city ordinances like stealing eggs.
Mm.
Permitting. So if you like wildlife so much, and you can justify why you like wildlife so much, and you want to collect things, for example, there's scientific permits for the colleges. You know, they're going to have things like a bald eagle, a stuffed bald eagle, or maybe a live one or whatever. You can get scientific permits, other permits. If you really enjoy this, talk to Gail and work with her, and you can do all sorts of other stuff. So these are a lot of, I believe, bigwigs. I don't know if they're bigwigs, but they're Texas master naturalists. It's absolutely incredibly important that you do have a working relationship with the game wardens in your area. We can help you answer questions. We can come do a program for you. Especially if you're trespassing inadvertently. That'd probably be a good thing to know them. So ethical standards, it's something you learn. It's incredibly important that someone teaches you, and to know too that once you learn them, that it's doing the right thing when no one's looking too. Just paying attention. Oh, look at the kitty cat, it's so cute. So doing things when the right thing when no one's looking. For example, with game wardens and police officers, and now more than ever, we live in a glass house. And that's what they teach us in the Game Warden Academy, that your actions are being watched all the time. You live in a small town. Say you live in Jayton, Texas, and you wear your game warden. You go home because you can't go in your personal or your game warden truck to go to the grocery store. But if you go home, take your gun belt off and go back out in this and go buy some beer, you're being judged, absolutely judged. Is it unethical? No. I like beer, but I'm sure not going to go in uniform and do that and make, create something. And it's not that it's not ethical either, but it's just something to consider. If you've got some things that maybe your constituents disagree with, then everything we do is judged. Absolutely. Everything we do. You pick your nose is being judged. So they just drive that home with us, that you live in a glass house. Everything you do, and especially in small communities, is being judged. And so remember, when y'all are out as Texas Master Naturalists, you're representing Texas Parks and Wildlife. You're representing your peers. What you do has an effect on the person next to you. And whatever professional thing that you do, say you're a Texas Tech professor, and you're doing something that other people are like, what is she? That's not good. I don't think she should be doing that. You're representing the person next to you. So ethics are incredibly important, especially as a master naturalist. You're going to be wearing things that have Parks and Wildlife stuff on them. So consider that. Do you remember the Dixie Chicks? I think it's just Chicks now. They spoke up. Okay. And boy, did it affect the heck out of them. I kind of wonder if they spoke up, like in today's day and age. I feel like the past 10 years, things have absolutely changed. But if they spoke up back when it was probably a bad idea, and what happened to them? They got tore up. They sure did have freedom of speech, but they got tore up. As a Texas Master Naturalist, is it your responsibility to talk about politics?
No.
Absolutely not. Is it your responsibility to talk about religion when you're representing your peers? Absolutely not. That's not the place. If you want to have a private conversation, by all means. If, as a game warden, I go out and start preaching to you guys how I feel about Trump or Biden, you're going to lose respect either way you look at it, no matter how I feel about politics. That's not the place to be doing it. So take that in consideration. And again, you can still have an opinion. It's just where you choose to do it. And again, I cannot drive it home enough. Whatever organization and wherever you are, if you're representing your church, consider what you're saying and doing. Miss Texas, they've been under fire. A lot of people are under fire because they're representing everybody. She's representing everyone in Texas for whatever she says, doesn't say. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying y'all are all Miss Texas or Miss America. This game warden, absolutely. We represent all the game wardens. If we say or do something that would just be unethical, inappropriate, we're held to a very high standard. It says this meeting now has unlimited minutes. Okay.
Oh no.
It says unlimited. I think that's good. I don't know. I'm going to keep talking though.
Okay.
That means you're stuck with me. I guess you can disconnect. All right. So we'll go through each of these situations. So here's the situation. Just think about this. So the master naturalist receives a detailed question about wildlife rules. And if you're representing Texas Parks and Wildlife, our biologists wear a very similar, they don't have this patch right here, but they have this, and it doesn't say game warden on it. It says biologist, or it says state parks or something like that. And they get asked questions, they get stopped. Hey, I got a game law question. And then what's the best answer? If I get asked a biologist question, even though I have a biology background, they actually sent out an email that we're not directed to answer those questions. We can answer law questions.
I Google it.
Go ahead. Google it.
Yeah.
Yes,
I work at a
you
nursery.
can guide them. Yeah.
Yeah, I work at a nursery. I get asked all kinds of weird questions. So I just put.
You show them how to do it. So
yeah.
Understand if you tell them the wrong thing. And I don't know if people lie to me. I'm sure they do in the field when they say, well, so that this game warden told me. I'm like, I don't know if that was a game warden that told you could shoot more than 15 dove or whatever it may be. So just know when you answer that, if you have an answer and you know the answer and you're convinced about it, like when people ask me a bird question, I love to answer it. But then I caveat and say, but hey, talk to a local biologist or talk to Texas Parks and Biologist to confirm that, or look on Google. So definitely. So refer them to the game warden or the wildlife information line, or Google, right? Even though, but I don't know if Google's, well, just send them to Facebook. That's probably good. All right. What about if you hear about a wild animal being held captive or it needs rehabilitation? Let's think about a pet deer that's trapped and can't get out of a backyard and they're petting it, feeding it. What do you think you should do? Keep it to yourself, right? I'm just kidding. Place the animal into the hands of a permitted or appropriate rehabilitator. I would call Gail first just to set that up and say, hey, this is what's going on. You're about to get a deer. I'm calling the game warden next. Or she'll call me directly. Either one works, or she'll call someone that can get a hold of me. We're so lucky to have Gail here and so close. What about if you hear something about trespassing and poaching? If you hear something, you're like, even if you don't know if it's illegal or not, I get a lot of calls that, hey, my neighbor's doing this. Is this legal? And half the time it is, half the time it's not. You can say it's an anonymous tip. I have There's cameras. You can just tell them that too. So the important thing, and I tell landowners this, don't approach people. People are a little bit crazy these days, and you don't know how they're going to react. If you can get a license plate, oh my gosh, or if you can video or get a picture of it, that can get me started in the right direction. I would not approach anyone unless you have to, okay? So pass that information along, absolutely pass it along. And if you can't get a hold of me, every game warden's phone number is public information. So whatever county you're in, you type in on Google right now, game warden, Lubbock County, you're gonna have 3 game wardens pop up, and it's our personal cell number. You can get a hold of us. You go to Wise County, type in Wise County game warden, and they'll be literally the first thing that pops up, and get their information. Now let's say we're all on vacation or we're on a border op, you can call that Operation Game Thief hotline and tell them too. And then you can also get a reward, which is pretty neat. We already talked about, let's say a Texas master naturalist obtains feathers and wants to integrate them into an educational display. Let's say you find the really cool hawk feathers and you're like, I'm a master naturalist. I kind of have a little bit of authority. What can I do with this? Get a permit. You can do something with it for education. So Texas Parks and Wildlife, again, everything's so easy to find these days. You type in Texas Parks and Wildlife Permit Office, you'll get a hold of someone, okay? And Gail probably has the hotline for that. Here's another situation. You're leading a group on a hike and you find some feathers on the ground. What do? You can pick them up and teach the group about them, right? And you could teach them and say, hey, if I kept this, let me tell you what would happen. And hopefully I'm not there with you judging you. Just kidding. So you really just need to explain everything about it. Now, what if it's turkey feathers? Can you keep it?
Yeah.
You absolutely can. What if it's dove feathers or crane feathers? You can keep them. Those are game birds, okay? They're not protected under that Migratory Bird Treaty Act. Whooping crane, don't touch them, please. You'll go to federal prison. Just kidding. They're incredibly protected because there's not many of them left. So what if you find on someone's property you have permission to be on, you find an antler shed? What do you do with that antler shed? Or the skull, if you find the whole skull cap? Can you pick up that, can you pick that up, those antlers, and take them home? Is there any law restricting you from that?
If you've got permission from the landowner, then yeah, you could take them home.
You got it. That's exactly it. You can pick that up, take it home. Now that's for Texas. Do not take that information to any other state. I know there's other states that if you pick stuff up and you take it home, you can get in deep trouble because you have to explain how you got that. I mean, in Texas, I'm still going to ask you, hey, where'd you get that? That's really cool. Oh, I found it. Okay. Or if you start acting fishy, I'm going to be like, oh, so you hunt? Or a number of questions. All right. A master naturalist takes a group on a hike and wants to cross a fence to go see a really cool area because it's just right over there. What do? You cross it and cross your fingers, right? No, that's a good way to get shot.
You do not go. You do not.
You don't go. It's, you know, again, Texas, there's a lot of gun-toting people, and I just would not risk it. Now, I walk around and it's not bulletproof, but it's a vest that's supposed to stop things. So at least I have that when I'm going on people's property. And I do it on a regular basis, looking for hunters and whatever else they're doing out there or fishing. So make sure you have permission. It is so easy. If you have Onyx, that helps too. It's so much easier to ask for permission, not forgiveness. And you know, that old, don't flip it. Okay. It's much better to ask for permission in this instance. Don't cross it. Talk to the landowner. What about y'all are discussing land use rules while over an aquifer that happens to be regulated, for example, Edwards Aquifer? Give the best answer for that area and then refer it to an agency. Contact the regulatory authority. I don't know if that's really likely, but it may happen to you guys. So this is in our outdoor annual. If any of y'all are interested in our game laws, they stopped printing them, but they started putting them online. So you can download the outdoor annual app. This is exactly where it's taken from. So it's talking about the sale of inedible parts of wildlife. All right. This is really important. This is kind of what I asked earlier. So the hair, hide, antlers, bones, horns, skulls, hooves, and sinew from the following game animals: mule deer, white-tailed deer, pronghorn antelope, desert big sheep, squirrels, fox squirrels, red squirrels, and collared, I can't say it, peccary or javelina, So you can possess all of those things. And you can sell those things. So you see that chandelier right there? You're allowed to sell those things, all right? Feathers from duck, geese, brant may be used, purchased, or sold for making fishing flies, pillows, mattresses, and similar commercial uses. Feathers from migratory birds may not be purchased or sold for hats or ornamental purposes whatsoever, okay? Or you can't sell migratory game bird specimens taken by hunting. Feathers, bones, or feet of game birds other than migratory game birds, you can sell them, all right? So that headdress down there, that's made of eagle feathers. Are you allowed to possess that? Not unless you have an incredibly important permit that says you can, or you're Native American and it's been, I mean, you still have to go through the paperwork process. It's possible, but unlikely. Can you sell and buy deer meat or deer jerky?
Yes.
Yeah, they do it all the time.
No, you can't.
It's going to blow your mind, okay? Not of native species, okay? So if they're selling mule deer or white-tailed deer meat or jerky or sausage, do not buy it. Call me directly. Screenshot it and let me know. Typically, it's red stag or other deer that are non-natives that you're seeing that deer jerky, okay?
Okay.
So isn't that good information?
That's great information to have. Yes.
All right, let's talk about the history. This is really cool. These are old hoop nets. It's probably East Texas if I had to guess. So 1861, the first game laws were enacted. And so what do you think was going on in 1861 that they required that? Or why do we need that in 1861?
Things were being overfished, overgrazed, overhunted.
Absolutely. In total access. I mean, just unbelievable if you look at pictures from that era of things that were being harvested without any consideration of tomorrow.
Buffalo.
Yes, absolutely. It's amazing. In 1883, 130 counties claimed an exemption from those game laws. So Texas was like, don't tell me what to do. 130 counties said, don't tell me what to do. In 1897, law was enacted that made it illegal to take fish through the use of poison, lime, or explosives. 1897, that was a long time ago. In 1903, season was closed on pronghorn antelope and headlight hunting was made illegal. So that's spotlighting. That was 1903. In 1907, so it took 30 years for them to realize we need to, we can make all these laws, but until we have someone enforce them, they mean nothing. Kind of like mask laws. No one's enforcing that. No one's been told to because we don't know what we're supposed to be doing or what's going on. So if you don't have someone to enforce it, what are you going to do? 1907, Texas Game, Fish, and Oyster Commission was established. That's what we used to be called. In 1919, first game wardens were hired. So I don't know what took 12 years to get us hired after they established the commission. 6 wardens were employed to patrol the entire state. Only 6. What are you going to do with 6 wardens? This picture is a game warden. His name is Herbert Ward in 1924 in East Texas. He used his personal vehicle back then, and he was collecting hoop nets. In 1923 to 1945, 1923, 45 more wardens were hired, so now there was 51 wardens. In 1927, the department brought its first successful prosecution for stream pollution. Just imagine how much pollution was before then. In 1928, 40 game wardens were dropped from service due to the decreased revenue. In 1938, the first uniforms were actually issued. So they're out there like renegades in their own vehicle, in their own clothes, and their own guns, everything. Can you imagine being a game warden back then? You want to talk about dangerous. In 1939, there was a total of 93 game wardens in the state. Again, they still patrolled in their personal vehicles. Not only that, a lot of them did it by horseback. Up here in the Panhandle, there's a lot of places that are hard to get to. And so they used horses to get down into like Caprock Canyon and things like that. In 1946, the first Game Warden Academy was held, and it lasted 4 months. Look at that game warden car. In 1948, there was 125 game wardens in the state. 5 years later, we got another 60. And then 5 more years, another 20. So slowly getting more game wardens. In 1962, they moved us to a sedan. And then finally in 1963, they changed the name of it So we got oyster taken out, but obviously oysters were incredibly important back then. It changed to Texas Game and Fish Commission. In 1968, game wardens issued the first patrol cars with air conditioners. That one makes me laugh. I wouldn't have made it back then. In 1969, there was 283 game wardens in the state. So definitely increasing slowly but surely. Look at that hawk. These are 2 game wardens. What a fun time. All sorts of stuff stowed away. In 1971, game wardens acquired peace officer status, which means that we can enforce all the laws in the state of Texas. So prior to 1971, if you're out game wardening and you find a drunk driver, you didn't have the authority to do anything about it. You found a bootlegger, anything else, you had zero authority to do anything about it. So it was a great thing that was granted to us, because I spend more time now enforcing penal code, traffic code than I do game warden stuff, because it's there and it's happening. Dove hunters are smoking pot right there. There's drunk drivers that are road hunting. In 1972, there's a total of 322 game wardens. In 1974, pursuit vehicles were issued to wardens. So they're like, all right, we're going to really have them be a part of it. In 1978, they had the first game warden academy in Austin, and it was there for a long time, up until 2 years before I went to the academy, and it moved to Hamilton, Texas. Those looked like some fun vehicles to patrol in. In 1984, OGT was started, and we apprehended 484 violators, which paid over $103,000 in fines, which was 830 convictions. So that OGT hotline is what we call it, really helped us. Because think about it, a lot of times I'm out driving around aimlessly, just looking around. Someone hunting, fishing, where are they? I mean, there's going to be some certain areas you're going to look for. In 1990, they issued these blazers to us. Oh wait, that's not a blazer. That one's a Charger. Let's see if the next one. Right now, we have 551 game wardens in the state of Texas. That includes the people we have down in Austin. That includes supervisors. Not many. In 2014, just to get us up to speed, we were issued our first iPhone. What a jump. Back in the 80s, the wives, 80s and before, the wives would actually dispatch the game wardens. Can you imagine that? They would get the calls from the sheriff's office. Hey, honey, there's a call down here, and they would have to go to it. There's our cadet academy that we had. We're going to have one more in October that's starting, and then I believe that we're going to be shut down for a little bit because of funding. So Texas is huge. I said that earlier. I told you how many game wardens we have. The Panhandle, let's look at the size of that. I cover Hockley County and Lubbock County, 2 gigantic counties. Just me and Hockley. Lubbock, I fortunately share with 2 other partners. I want to kind of compare how much area game wardens cover compared to troopers. There's over 2,300 troopers. That's 8 troopers per 100,000 people. The highway system covers 3,200 miles versus 1 warden per 350,000 acres. So when I get someone that says, I've never seen a warden around here, I'm like, probably not. There's a lot of area to cover. Or I hadn't seen a warden out checking fishermen in weeks or months. Probably not. There's a lot of stuff I got to cover, a lot of places I get called, a lot of things I got to do. So it's incredibly important as a game warden to have good relationship with other officers to help with this and to help get information about what's going on, where is going on. And I just love that OGT hotline. So 1895, we've been around. And again, our jurisdiction is the entire state of Texas. I've been all the way down to Port Aransas for oyster operations, which they're a lot of fun, especially if you've been up in the Panhandle for 9 years. You want something new to do. Pronghorn operations, they'll send us up north to Dalhart for that. What else? We get to do border operations. That will take a good bit of time. Now, I'd say about all these other things with border operations, our primary objective is to deal with hunting, fishing, water safety. But again, we're Texas peace officers, and if we see something, I'm not going to do this past the drunk driver, or I'm not going to do this past the kid not wearing a seatbelt. I'm going to deal with it.
What happens in a border operation?
I don't know if I have a slide later, but I'm going to hold that question just in case, okay? So our inspection authority is, a lot of people are blown away by this. I know I am, but boy, I'm the nosiest person I know. So this job is definitely for me. I get to go through your belongings. Quite literally, I'll read it to you. A game warden who observes a person engaged in activity governed by Texas Parks and Wildlife or reasonably reasonably. You have an antler on your porch, I'm going to come say hi to you, because probably you went hunting. I don't know. I'm just still going to say hi to you. So if we believe that that person has been engaged in that activity, we can inspect your license, tag, permit, any device that may be used in it. All right. And any wildlife resource in the person's possession, and the contents of any container or receptacle that is commonly used to store or conceal a wildlife resource. So that ice chest sitting there, when I first started, when I'd go and check fishermen, I talked to him. Hey there, state game warden, how you doing? Caught anything? No. All right. You might have to look in your ice chest. No, go ahead. I don't have to ask. In West Texas, I do, because well, anywhere in Texas, I'm going to ask and be polite. I haven't been told no yet, knock on wood. I'm sure it's coming. But I asked, do you mind if I look in it while I'm opening it? So I'm already looking inside. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, there's nothing in there. That one time, I got lied to, and some people are, oh, I forgot about that little guy. And it may be illegal fish. They just forgot. That absolutely happens. And then there's the people that totally lied, and it's filled with 50 undersized fish. So it's important that I have the authority to look in there, because if I didn't, they'd take those fish home and I would never know. There would be absolutely no way, unless it was in progress. I just saw them catch that undersized fish and keep it. Incredibly unlikely for me to be in the right place, right time. Okay, it happens. Some game wardens are just that lucky. But if you think about how big the state of Texas is, and being at the right place at the right time, sometimes that's tough when it comes to wildlife. You can hide that resource incredibly fast. For a deer, for example, you shoot a deer, take it home and eat it. Or if you even at the campsite, catch a fish, fillet it, eat it real fast. It's gonna be hard to catch you. Y'all see that hubcap on there? Y'all probably wondering why that's, I mean, who stores wildlife in there? I'd say about 15, 20 years ago is what I heard, that people used to take doves. So say you shoot 16 dove and you want to keep going, or 2 less or whatever. You hide, if you get too many, you put them in there. Who would have thought? That's a great idea. Hide it from the game warden. Another place I've seen that they hide birds when you go over the limit and you don't want the game warden to know, you know, those fold out chairs, the case that goes around them, that's just a pain to put them back in. They put them down in that case, throw that in the back of my truck. And I mean, you just think it's a case in the back of the truck. I started looking in there now. I absolutely started looking in there. So anywhere that you could hide something. So if you're out on a dove field and you got an ice chest inside your truck or in the back, I'm going to go through it. Okay. I even have the authority to go through your vehicle. For example, lead shot. If you're out there goose hunting or duck hunting, I have the authority to go through your vehicle and make sure you don't have that lead shot in there. So with so much authority, there's so much responsibility that goes with it. You hear about, unfortunately, there's some bad cops out there, you know, that they're unfortunately in every profession, every walk of life, there's some bad people out there. As a game warden, we know if you take away our inspection authority, we've got nothing, absolutely nothing. Game laws they're very easy to hide. So we're incredibly careful with our inspection authority. For example, maybe a DEA agent approaches me and says, hey, I know you got permission to go on land and you don't need a warrant. We think they're growing a marijuana field over here. Can you go see if there's any hunters and tell us if there's marijuana over there? No, I can't. I absolutely cannot. If I do something like that, I'm taking advantage of something I don't have authority for. Now, if I really think there's hunters over there, I'll go check and see if there's hunters, but I can't do it under the context that I'm looking for marijuana. So that is important that all of us know that, and they beat that into us at the Game Warden Academy. I kind of laugh about our patch because it doesn't look that law enforcement. It definitely looks very much like a park one. And in Lubbock, when I first started, it's still the city. I get a lot of people that look at that patch and say, why do you carry a gun? You're just a game warden. And I'm like, well, you know, there's things like people hunting with a gun. And if I have to take away their gun and put them in jail, I'm not going to do it without a gun myself. I mean, that's just suicide. Absolutely. And you can't tell now, but I'm a very small person. I'm only 5'2". Okay. I'm really strong though. I'm just kidding. But there's no way you could pay me money to go tell this guy, hey, you're done hunting for the season. I'm taking your gun. I'm taking your deer. I'm taking this, and you're going, you know, it's dumb. So I should really carry a picture and show people, you know, this is why I carry a gun. It's pretty obvious. Or something like this. A majority of the times that I'm out there by myself, I'm checking more than one person. I'm outnumbered, tremendously outnumbered. I may be blonde, but I'm really not that dumb, I promise. So I'm glad I'm packing a gun. But the funny thing up here in Lubbock is they'll ask me, you know, they'll look at my patch. Sometimes they won't even ask. They'll look at my patch, like at Burger King or something, and they'll yell in the back, do game wardens get discount? And the person in the back goes, no, they're not real police. And you're like, just give me my food and get me out of here. And then sometimes they'll ask, hey, you know, what do you do? What is a game warden? And they kind of laugh with it because they don't have a clue what we do. And so it's fun to educate them. So I don't know, again, if you guys hunt or not, but something really interesting to me is hunting licenses. They pay for wildlife management. They don't pay my salary. They don't pay whatsoever my salary. That's out of a different budget. So it's really neat that hunters are providing wildlife management with the money they spend on licenses. I tell fishermen that are hunting public water, if the fisherman doesn't have a license, I say, hey, you know, when you pay for a license, that helps the fishery stock what you're fishing. Oh. So it's kind of that, getting that logic in there. When you buy a new firearm or ammunition, a percentage of that goes to the Wildlife Restoration Act. 11%, I think it's great. So there's been over $5.5 billion spent for conservation. It's incredible. Hunters provide $372 million per year in conservation. So when the hunters provide more dollar amount to conservation than any other organization in the U.S. And I don't know worldly, but definitely U.S. What do? We protect everything. If you like I talked about oysters earlier, if you like seafood, you better thank your coastal game wardens because they are protecting you absolutely. When I was down there doing that oyster op, it blew my mind that people would go at night to these contaminated bays and go collect oysters. And what do? They sell them to you and you could die unless the game warden's there. We can't be there all the time. That's the hard thing about our job too. And I wish that the state of Texas could afford more game wardens because they will definitely be utilized, I promise you. Water safety, we've spent the last 6 months doing water safety. If you like to go out on the lake, you'll see us out there, typically in the summertime, making sure you're safe. I would say every time we go out there, we save a life. Whether it be that there's a kid not wearing a life jacket or a kid trying to swim or an adult. That's what happened at Buffalo. That just recently there was an adult trying to swim across the lake and he drowned. So we are constantly helping people, making sure they're not making dumb choices. There's other things that we deal with: registration, stolen boats, BWIs. If you guys like to drink on the water, please don't. It's dangerous. And it holds the same penalty. We help with natural disasters. This is some pictures from Katrina. And what's really cool is, why do they ask game wardens to help? Because we have nothing better to do? No, not at all. We're busy. It's because we have the resources. We have, a lot of times too, game wardens are some of the most highly trained officers in Texas because we're by ourselves a majority of the time. And so it's important that we know how to handle ourselves. When Katrina hit, they put wardens out there and it was like a war zone. If you remember hearing stories about it, just the craziness out there. We help with a lot of disasters. Border security. All right, Christopher, here's to answer you. We're out there getting drugs. No, not intentionally. They just happen to be there. So the border ops, the governor requests us down there for a presence. Now, game wardens have the boats. That's the big thing. We have the boats and the resources. So we're out there looking for commercial fishermen is the primary goal. And we find this. We absolutely find things that we weren't intending on finding. Illegals coming across, drugs, commercial fishermen. It's pretty busy down there and it moves around. There's permanent troopers down on the border now, so we really hadn't done that many border operations like we were doing for a while. We get to do deer. Did I answer your question, Chris? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
And I hadn't done a border op. We had occasional ones here and there, but for a while we were being sent down every other month. And so it's nice that it slowed down. We can focus more on our counties. Deer breeder inspection, there's scientific permits. People breed deer to help their populations. Chronic wasting disease, that's a big deal right now. Unfortunately, we do have it in Texas. If you don't know what chronic wasting disease is, definitely spend some time and look it up. It's a neurological disease that degenerates the brain. It's like the mad cow of deer. It's I hate to say it, it's spreading and it spreads pretty easily. And we're trying to have containment zones so it doesn't spread across the whole state. If it just spreads across the whole state, it's going to be a huge issue for conservation. Why? Because hunters provide a huge dollar amount for conservation directly, that we depend on their money. If they're not hunting because they're like, I don't want a deer that's like diseased and it could kill me. There's no proof that you can eat the meat and it can kill you. That last one, it says it's not They don't know if it can spread to humans, but me personally, if I found out that thing has CWD, I'm not touching it. So this is typically what they look like when they start showing symptoms. So their brains turn to mush and they don't know to eat or drink. And so they just slowly just deteriorate like a zombie deer and die. The scary thing is they can be carrying it and they're not showing symptoms yet. So it's still happening. So if this spreads throughout the state, hunters in other states, you'll see this, absolute decline, immediate decline in hunting. This is what it looked like pre-2000. Those little yellow dots are where it's at. And what year does this one show? It's spread. And if you look at the red, those are captive facilities. So obviously they moved around a little bit, and that's what spread it. So we talked about, I just told you the same thing, the lost revenue. Someone had done a research on it who was a Colorado State and had looked at the actual impacts from it. It's scary. Here's one, this was 2 years ago, a roadkill. So let me ask you this. If you find a roadkill deer or you hit a deer, can you take its head home or take the meat? The answer is maybe. Legally, the answer is no, you cannot, okay? If you have a good relationship with your game warden in that county, or you just want to call and ask, they might say yes. I say yes because I don't want to waste a deer that was just hit. There's nothing wrong with it unless it was gut hit and it exploded. You don't want that meat. That's disgusting. But it might be bruised on one side and the other side's still good. Take it, eat it. But if I drive up and you're cutting the antlers off or cutting the back straps out, my assumption is you just killed it intentionally. You hit it with your car just so you could take it home. Say your car's not hit or messed up and you just were the next person that found it. I'm still thinking, why did this deer die? You must have done it. So that it is a law that you cannot touch that stuff. So call the sheriff's office, get hold of the game warden and make sure that you can take that if you want it. Now, I always keep the deer heads because I take them up to our biologist and he does the chronic wasting disease sample. So it's a brainstem sample that they pull out and test it. This is obviously a game warden or the biologist picked this up and found one that was here, unfortunately. The other thing we enforce is invasive species. It's a big deal. Y'all will be learning about these. These things are huge issues. We don't have zebra mussels yet at Buffalo Springs. It would make the water beautiful if we did, but it's going to cause some serious issues. You've got to clean, drain, and dry your boat. Those zebra mussels, the babies, for lack of a better term right now, you can't see them. They're microscopic. So if you're going from one body of water to the next and you have anything on your boat, live well, in that water, you've got the baby zebra mussels that you have no idea are even in the water, and you take your boat to another lake, you have just moved zebra mussels across. So there's a map in that bottom left that shows you, see, looks like they started off in the Great Lakes and they're making their way everywhere. They don't belong here. They're not. We have other natural mussels. They looked at this period, 1993 to 1999, to see what it cost, and it was $3.1 billion. You can read that whole thing later because I think this is being recorded. So if you really like these, here's where's the breakdown, what's costing, having to clean out these pipes. You got to go through because they will clog the pipes up. If y'all saw in that picture, you do not want zebra mussels here. I'll show you that picture. Look at that. You leave your boat like that, you're out of luck. Here we go, 1997, 2013. And I will tell you, we get emails every time they spread in Texas. We've got more in Texas already, unfortunately. So it's costing, obviously, billions, millions of dollars all over. Here's another invasive that just easily spread. This one came out of a fish tank. Someone got done with their fish tank and didn't want the fish, and they dumped it in, and now we have a hydrilla problem. These are non-natives. There's some other stuff. As a game warden, we get to do things like this, public outreach. There's not just one game warden that only does this. We all get to do this. Youth hunts, fishing events. It's really neat. I was going to talk about a couple field cases that are irrelevant to the ethics. If you have to leave, you can. Are y'all good with me telling you a couple field cases? All right. So these are things I get to see or sent to me. And I don't know if a master naturalist has sent this to me. But it's really cool. I appreciate any tip y'all give me. Even if it's something that's ignorant and it's not even breaking the law, I'm not going to make you feel stupid, I promise. I'm just going to be thankful you took the time to call me. So this is a resource in Texas, shrimp, okay? Do you think he has any permits for this, just looking at it? and the fact that it came in from Mexico, no, there was absolutely zero permits for this. And the scary thing is, and so we confiscated this and threw it away. We have no idea how safe that shrimp is to eat or where it came from. Here's deer sausage. Poor Brittany. She was so nice and had no idea it was illegal. That was confiscated. So the main thing with this is if you create a market for a game animal, obviously shrimp, there's plenty of it, Gulf Coast, but something like a game animal, there's not as many, it's a mammal, and you create a market for this. Can you see an issue with that? People can go out at night and shoot deer and sell sausage on the side and call it legal. So we don't want to create a market for something like this. I get a lot of calls like this. Here's a dump deer. What's really going to scare me this next year during hunting season, most people take their deer to a processor. And right now, 4 of our 5 processors are closed down in our district, which is a 13 county radius. 4 of the 5. We just found out Duck Creek burnt down over in Dickens and Spur. That other one burnt down Klimke's, and another one shut down is only doing beef right now. I can't remember why the other one closed, but we got more dumped deer calls because they'd go take it to the processor and they're not processing them. And so they'd rather just dump the deer than have to deal with it. It's horrible, absolutely horrible. And I'm not looking forward to this season because I'm going to get tons of calls. And so this one, I found a UPC on the box. And I went to Home Depot and I said, when's the last time one of these was purchased? And it came back to a guy that was up in New York. And I'm like, well, that really doesn't make sense. So he must have been a landlord and used his account. I don't know. I wasn't able to track the guy down, but I was pretty excited about that. But sometimes we get lucky and there's we had one guy that left a bank receipt, fell out of his truck and was right next to the dead deer. That's lucky. One time someone had a kid's homework that fell out of the car and it was a small town. And there was the game warden took that homework with the kid's name on up there and said, hey, who done it? So this one has a nice wheelbarrow too. I made a pretty good case. This was up at Tech Campus. Someone had called and said, hey, there's a bunch of geese in the dumpster. And that's probably my number one call during goose season. And it's okay to hunt geese if you got a permit, license, all that. But you have to take the meat. You can't just kill it and leave it. That's not okay. The only thing you can kill and leave are your Asian collared dove because they're not a native. And then 2, the other one is hogs. I guess there's more than that. Hogs are exotic and they shouldn't be here, feral hogs, and coyotes. Everything else, if you're going to hunt a game species, you got to eat it or donate it or do something. Anyways, the calls I get when they breast out geese, they pull this skin back and just take the breast. And that's all you're really required to take because there's not much other meat. That's like the big portion. And then that kind of closes back. Sometimes you can see it or it's flipped backwards. You can't tell that it's been cleaned out. And so I'll get those calls and I'll come in there and I go, yeah, they're breasted out. They're allowed to do that. That was legal. Now putting them in the dumpster just free like that, they should have bagged them. You need to bag it. And the what is it? Lubbock Waste says that they put wildlife or animals in different places and bury it deeper just in case they're diseased. So any other animal that comes up and tries to eat it doesn't get diseased too. So that's a whole nother issue. But this day that I went out, sure enough, they weren't breasted out. I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, they didn't. Okay, they wasted it. And so there's a bag right here. I looked at all the trash. I tore open some bags. And right here, there's a receipt stuck to this Texas Roadhouse thing. And it had someone's phone number on there and name. And I called him. I said, hey, what's up with these geese that you put in the trash? He goes, what are you talking about? I'm looking at some geese that were wasted. I said, was it your friend? Is it your friend a hunter? He goes, yeah. I said, what's his name? He just off guard gave me his name. I called him. He goes, I didn't hunt this morning. That's someone else. He gave me another number. I talked to that guy. He goes, yeah, I went and visited Chris. It wasn't Christopher. I just can't remember the kid's name, but I'm seeing Christopher, thinking Christopher. He goes, I went over to so-and-so's house and I cleaned out my truck and they got warm. And so I just threw them back out there. I was like, I can't believe I made a case off that and found the guy because these are community dumpsters. It was luck of the draw, shooting in the dark, but I was able to get them. Oh.
What was the penalty for that?
So each animal in the state of Texas has a restitution value on it. Okay. So there's civil and then there's criminal. So the civil part, you're going to get fined regardless. So let's say you shoot too many dove. Dove right now in the state of Texas. When I started, dove were only worth $59 a pop. So you shoot 16, you go over the limit. I catch you that 16th dove. Civilly, you got to pay the state of Texas because it's mathematical, $59. This year it's $100 per dove, which means there's probably less dove this year than there was then. So it goes up and down. A deer, the base price is $800. Then it goes up from there because they do a Boone Crockett score on it. Okay, so they look at the antlers and go, wow, that was a nice deer for the state of Texas. It's worth X amount of dollars. I don't remember what a goose is. I'm betting it's in the 150 range. I'll have to look and see this year what it was. So each one of those geese that was in there, I believe there was 6 in there, had that restitution. Then they had 6 charges of wasting game, which is only a Class C misdemeanor, which it's hard, but at least the restitution's on there. So waste a game, Class C, it's a minimum fine of $25, goes up to $500, okay? And the judge gets to decide in there whatever they want on that. Or they could plead not guilty and I just bring all these dead geese and show it to them. Did that answer the question? Oh, there it is. That was coming up, civil restitution.
Oh, hey, I should just be quiet.
No, I didn't know I had that in there, so that was good.
Okay, good.
So they do have to pay that. Now, that if they don't ever pay their civil restitution, they can't renew their license. This individual was selling hunts on someone else's property. For one, that was not a good idea. There's a lot of absentee landowners out here, and so it's easy to do. Well, where he made the mistake is he had traded a gun for a hunt, and he was we didn't have his name since y'all are recording this. He's a convicted felon. He couldn't have the gun. Oops. Not a good idea, right? So he got in trouble for that. All right. I'm going to stop there because there's a lot of stuff on here that since you're recording it, I don't know how much of this stuff, since it has their names on here, I can't share it.
Okay.
If it has his name or not. I mean, it is public information after they did it, but if it's still in court, it's a no-go.
Yeah, I understand.
So I'll answer any questions y'all have. I mean, I know I talked a little bit about the law, a little bit about ethics, a lot about game warden, because I think it's important that y'all know what game wardens do, because there's a huge misconception that we just do one thing, and really we cover a lot of stuff.
It does. I have a question about prairie dogs and burrowing owls. Okay, we all love them here in Master Naturalist World, but how can we stop people from killing those animals?
Oh man. So prairie dogs aren't protected. You can hunt them any time of year, any method you'd like to hunt them, as long as you're on your property, have permission to be on that property. Burrowing owls are threatened and absolutely protected. The big problem in Lubbock is that nobody wants prairie dogs around, and so they'll poison the prairie dogs and inadvertently kill a burrowing owl.
Right.
So that's illegal. You can't do that. Okay. But being able to catch them do that, that is painful and hard. And I don't have much luck.
Okay. If you see it happening, we can tell you.
Yeah, you can still tell me, but unless I find that dead burrowing owl because of that poisoning, it's kind of hard.
Okay.
It's an unintended.
I live in a community that has burrowing owls, and I noticed that all of a sudden they disappeared, and now they moved over to another area. And I think with them mowing and everything, I know in Florida they used to tape off the burrowing owl nests, but they don't do that here, right?
What did they do with the burrowing owl nest?
I don't know what they did, but all of a sudden they're gone from where they were, and they've moved over to another patch. There's certainly not nearly as many as there was. So I don't know what they did.
I don't know. I'd be curious about that. If they naturally moved or disturbed or what, something bothered them.
I love owls. So
You can't actually poison them during breeding season because there's no way to tell. So hopefully, I know the city will go out and do a survey and see if there's any, I guess their poop for any of that around the holes.
Interesting.
So, but as far as like, if you really wanted to protect the prairie dogs from being hunted, you would have to start and go to our meetings, Texas Parks and Wildlife meetings, and voice your concerns, and then I guess try to get a law made for it.
I might do that.
You got to start somewhere.
That's right. Anyone else have questions?
Well, I'm curious about the law enforcement aspect. So if you come upon like more than one person, do you call for backup, or you just are arresting them all on your own?
So if I have to arrest all of them,
Yes.
if I have to arrest all of them, I'm definitely calling for backup. I am
Okay.
absolutely outnumbered. I'm gonna play nice until I get some backup there, and hopefully they don't have to have cuffs right away. If it's that kind of situation, that's when the gift for gab really comes in play. Now, if they're intoxicated, that's painful. I've called for backup a few times at the Playa Lakes, and the main thing is I don't have enough room in my truck to arrest people. So I have my front seat, but if I have a partner that day, I don't have anywhere to put them. They're not allowed to sit behind me.
Okay.
I don't have a cage in my truck. So, and it's a lot easier to call LPD or a sheriff's office. Sometimes they have trouble finding us, and it takes them a while to get there. That's pretty typical.
You probably have more in common with the original lawmen of the Old West than any other peace officers in Texas.
Yeah.
I would think you're operating on your own. You have to rely on your own wits and your gift of gab, stuff like that. It's interesting. I had no idea.
You're right. You're right about that. I never really thought about it being like that. But I compare us to the old time game wardens. I'm like, oh, they had it tough. No backup, zero, zilch, nothing.
This is great. I learned a lot. Thank you very much.
Good. I'm glad.
Yes, thank you.
My information, again, it's public information. You want to call me anytime, give me a tip, have a question, comment, concern, just look up Mallory Mitchell or just type in Lubbock County Game Warden, and I'm right there.
Thank you, Mallory.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all for what you do. I'm glad that y'all are being a part of this. I'm glad this organization's still pushing forward.
We are. We're pushing forward.
I love it. Don't let COVID slow you down, okay?
All right.
That's right.
Thank you, Mallory. We appreciate this cheerleading too.
All right. Well, are y'all going to continue having a meeting after I pull off, or y'all?
We might. Well, I don't know.
Okay.
No, we're not going to have a meeting. There's only 6 of us.
Okay.
But I have something first. We have a member logged in under the name iPhone. We're not sure if he or she should actually be here. Could you reveal who you are, please? You're on mute right now.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've chatted with them privately. They're not responding.
I know. I tried also. Maybe in the future we shouldn't let anyone in who we don't know their name because we don't know who they are.
Right. I
Point.
agree.
Glad we didn't say anything bad. That would have been awkward.
Yes, it would have. Thank you very much, Mallory. And I'm going to be in touch about doing an advanced training on birds.
All right. Sounds good.
Oh, thank you.
Y'all take
That'd be
care.
great.
Bye.
Thanks. You too.
You too.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all for coming.
You bet.
Thanks
Thank
for putting
you.
it together.
Yes. Good
bet.
job.
Thanks, Lena.
Yeah.
Bye. Mm-hmm.